My world collapsed when a single Instagram story lit up my phone. It showed my father, who was supposedly recovering from a serious heart condition, raising a champagne flute on a luxury train. Beside him, my mother was laughing, and my brother had his arm around a girl I'd never met. They weren't just on vacation. They were on my vacation, the one I had spent my entire bonus on to celebrate my dad's retirement. My name is Megan, I'm 30 years old, and that photo was just the beginning of discovering my family's most devastating secret. I stared at the spreadsheet glowing on my laptop screen, triple-checking every detail. The Golden Coast Railway's luxury retirement package, $3,200 for the ocean view cabin with private balcony, another $800 for dinner reservations at the train's 5-star restaurant. My entire year-end bonus, gone in one click. But seeing Dad's face when he discovered this surprise would be worth every penny. I'd been planning this for months. Dad's retirement party at work had been a sad affair. A sheet cake in the break room and a cheap watch. After 35 years managing the hardware store that barely stayed afloat, he deserved something magnificent. Something that would erase the shame I still saw in his eyes when he thought no one was looking. The memory hit me like it always did, sharp and sudden. I was 18, sitting on our front porch steps, eavesdropping through the screen door as Mom and Dad whispered in the kitchen. Dad's auto parts store had just gone under, bankruptcy papers scattered across our dinner table like fallen leaves. "Megan's practical," Mom had said, her voice thick with tears. "She's strong. She can work for a year, help us get back on our feet. But her engineering scholarship. Evan needs protecting, Mark. You know how sensitive he is, his art, his potential. We can't let this destroy his dreams too." I'd sat there, watching the sunset paint our street gold, making a silent promise to be everything they needed me to be. The acceptance letter from Oregon State got buried in my desk drawer, still unopened. 10 years later, I was a senior systems analyst at a tech firm, making good money. Good enough to carry my parents' mortgage when Dad could only find part-time work. Good enough to pay for Mom's medical bills when her insurance fell short. Good enough to fund this perfect retirement surprise. My phone buzzed. Mom's name lit up the screen. "Sweetheart, you're an angel for organizing this trip," she said, her voice warm with gratitude. "Your father keeps asking why you're being so secretive about our anniversary dinner plans." I smiled, savoring the innocent deception. "Just tell him to pack comfortable shoes and his camera." "I will. Oh, but honey." Her tone shifted, became almost apologetic. "Evan got offered this huge freelance design project. Last-minute thing, but the money's too good to pass up. He's heartbroken about missing Dad's celebration." A familiar pang of disappointment settled in my chest, quickly followed by relief. Maybe it would be better this way. Just the three of us, the way it used to be before Evan started bringing different girlfriends to every family gathering, each one younger and more demanding than the last. "That's okay, Mom. We'll take lots of pictures." "You're too understanding, Megan. I don't know what this family would do without you." I hung up and closed my laptop, a satisfied warmth spreading through me. 2 more days until we boarded the Golden Coast Railway. 2 days until I gave my parents the magical weekend they'd never allow themselves to splurge on. I had no idea I was counting down to my own destruction. The call came on Thursday afternoon while I was debugging code. 2 days before our scheduled departure. Evan's contact photo filled my screen, that charming smile that had gotten him out of trouble since childhood. "Megan?" His voice was tight with panic. "We have a problem." My fingers froze above my keyboard. "What kind of problem?" "Dad's in the hospital. Well, not exactly in the hospital, but he had some kind of episode. A heart thing. Arrhythmia, the doctor called it. They ran tests, said his heart rhythm's all over the place." The room tilted. "What? When is he?" He's okay. But Megan, the doctor was very clear. No stress, no excitement, no travel for at least 2 weeks. Dad's devastated about missing the trip, but you know how stubborn he is about medical stuff." I was already grabbing my purse, mentally calculating drive time to their house. "I'm coming over." "No." The sharpness in his voice stopped me cold. "That's the thing. Dad made me promise not to tell you. He knows how hard you worked on this surprise, knows how much money you spent. He's embarrassed, and you know how he gets about accepting help." That part rang true. Dad would rather suffer in silence than burden anyone. The last thing he needs is you hovering and asking questions, Evan continued. Mom's handling everything. I'm going to take care of canceling the train tickets, get whatever refund I can. You just focus on work, okay? Dad specifically said he doesn't want you disrupting your life over this. But Evan, trust me, big sister, let me handle this one. You've done enough. I set my phone down with shaking hands. The disappointment felt like physical weight pressing against my chest. All those months of planning, all that money, all that hope for creating one perfect memory, gone. That evening I tried to concentrate on Netflix, but my mind kept circling back to Dad lying in some hospital bed, probably beating himself up for ruining everyone's plans. I fell asleep on my couch, still wearing my work clothes. Friday night, my college roommate Sarah texted me a screenshot that made my world collapse. It was an Instagram story from someone named Skylar, a girl with bleached hair and perfect makeup, standing on what looked like a train platform. The caption read, "Surprise family getaway, my baby's spoiling me rotten. Blessed family time, coastline views." But it wasn't Skylar that made my breath catch, it was the people in the background, clearly visible in the setting sun's golden light. Dad, looking healthier than I'd seen him in years, raising a champagne flute. Mom, laughing at something off camera, and Evan, his arm wrapped around this Skylar girl, wearing the exact same sweater I'd bought him for Christmas. They weren't just healthy and happy, they were on my train, in my cabin, eating at my restaurant reservations. They had stolen my gift and given it to his girlfriend instead. I screenshot the image with mechanical precision, then sat staring at it until the phone's timer automatically darkened the screen. The silence in my apartment felt suffocating. Not the peaceful quiet I usually craved after long workdays, but the hollow silence of a life built on lies. I didn't cry. I couldn't cry. Something much colder than tears was spreading through my chest, a crystalline clarity that cut through 10 years of willful blindness. They hadn't just excluded me, they had conspired against me. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I threw a weekend bag into my car and drove toward the coast with no real destination in mind. The rain started somewhere around Highway 18, matching the storm building in my chest. I ended up in Astoria, that weathered fishing town, where the Columbia River meets the Pacific. The kind of place where people minded their own business, and the wind never stopped blowing. I checked into the first motel I found, a faded blue building called the Mariner's Rest with thin walls and thinner towels. The room smelled like decades of salt air and disappointment. Perfect. I sat on the scratchy comforter and opened my laptop, not to work but to do something I'd never done before. Examine my own life, like the problem it had become. When was the last time I'd made a decision just for myself? When was the last time I'd said no to a family request? When was the last time anyone had asked what I wanted? The memories came flooding back with painful clarity. Evan's student loans that became my responsibility when he dropped out of art school. Mom's emergency dental work that coincided suspiciously with Evan's need for a new car. The family vacation to Cabo last year that somehow became my treat, even though I'd wanted to spend that money on a photography course. Every sacrifice had been wrapped in the same narrative. Megan was strong, capable, practical. Megan could handle anything. Megan would understand. But this level of calculated deception, this was something new. I pulled up the property records for my house on the county website. I'd bought it 6 years ago when Dad's employment situation got shaky, intending it as an investment. When Mom mentioned they were struggling with rent, I'd offered to let them live there temporarily. Temporarily had become permanently, and my house payments had become their free housing. The records showed something that made my stomach clench. A credit inquiry from Apex Financial dated just 3 days ago. Apex specialized in high-interest loans for people with poor credit. The kind of predatory lending that targeted desperate gamblers. I knew Evan had been gambling again. I'd seen the signs, the mood swings, the vague explanations for sudden windfalls and mysterious absences. But I'd convinced myself it was just poker nights with friends. The motel's Wi-Fi was terrible, but I managed to log into my credit monitoring app. There it was, an alert about potential fraudulent activity on assets linked to my social security number. Someone had been making inquiries about using my house as collateral. The rage that hit me was unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Not the white-hot anger of a moment, but something colder and more dangerous. The fury of realizing that while I'd been playing the role of devoted daughter and sister, they'd been planning to gamble away my home. I called the one person I trusted, my former boss Janet, who'd left our company to start her own legal practice, specializing in family financial disputes. "Megan, it's almost midnight, honey." "Janet, I need help. I think my family is trying to steal my house." The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. "Where are you right now?" "Astoria. I needed to get away and think." "Good instinct. Don't go home until we talk. Meet me at my office tomorrow morning at 9. And Megan? Don't tell anyone where you are." I spent the rest of that sleepless night walking Astoria's empty streets, listening to foghorns and trying to figure out how I'd become so blind to my own life. The town felt like a liminal space between my old world and whatever came next, a place where the person I'd been could die quietly while something stronger took her place. By sunrise, I knew I wasn't going back to being their safety net. I was done. Janet's office smelled like fresh coffee and serious business. She'd been my mentor when I first started in tech, and the only person who'd ever told me I was worth more than I was settling for. "Show me everything," she said, settling behind her desk with a legal pad. I handed over printouts of the credit inquiries, screenshots of Skylar's Instagram story, and copies of the emails I'd found in my spam folder, communications I now realized had been deliberately filtered away from my main inbox. Janet's expression grew grimmer with each page. "Megan, this isn't just family drama. This is fraud. They forged documents to make preliminary inquiries about securing debt against your property. Can they actually take my house? Not without your signature. But they could make your life hell trying. The bigger question is, what do you want to do about it?" I'd been asking myself the same thing all morning. The old Megan would have called them, confronted them, demanded explanations, while secretly hoping we could all just move past this like every other family crisis. But the old Megan had died somewhere between Highway 18 and the Astoria city limits. "I want them out of my house," Janet nodded. "Oregon requires 30 days' notice for family members living rent-free. We can have papers drawn up by Monday." "And the loan application?" "I'll contact Apex directly. Make it clear that any loans secured against your property without your explicit written consent will result in immediate legal action." The relief was so intense it made me dizzy. For the first time in years, someone was protecting me instead of expecting me to protect everyone else. "There's something else," Janet said gently. "Has Evan ever had access to your personal documents? Social security card, bank statements, anything like that?" The question hit like ice water. The house sat for me last month when I was in Seattle for a conference. "We need to run a full credit report today." The credit monitoring revealed 2 additional inquiries I hadn't caught, both from payday loan operations. Someone had been shopping my information around like a commodity. I sat in Janet's office, staring at the evidence of my family's betrayal spread across her conference table, and felt something shift inside my chest. Not heartbreak, that was too simple. This was more like a fundamental rewiring of how I understood the world. "The hardest part isn't the money," I told Janet. "It's realizing I never mattered to them at all. I was just a resource to be managed." "That's the trauma talking," she said. "And probably the truth. But here's what I've learned in 10 years of family law. Sometimes the people who hurt us most are the ones who trained us to accept their treatment as love." I signed the papers for the eviction notice that afternoon. My hand was steady, my signature clear. For the first time in my adult life, I was choosing myself. They came back from their stolen vacation on a Tuesday. I know because Skylar posted a final Instagram story from Union Station. Evan carrying her pink luggage, while Mom and Dad trailed behind looking tanned and relaxed. I'd spent the weekend emptying my house of anything valuable or sentimental that belonged to me. The eviction notice was taped to the front door, impossible to miss. My phone started ringing at 6:23 a.m. Wednesday morning. Mom's contact photo, the sweet family selfie from last Christmas, felt like a mockery now. "Megan, sweetheart, there's been some terrible mistake." "No mistake, Mom. You have 30 days. Honey, you're not thinking clearly. You're upset about the trip, and I understand, but this is extreme. We can explain everything. I found the loan applications, Mom. The silence stretched so long I checked to see if the call had dropped. It's not what you think, she finally whispered. It's exactly what I think. You tried to use my house to pay Evan's gambling debts. He was desperate, Megan. These people were threatening him. We had to do something. The casual way she said it, like risking my financial future was the obvious solution to their problem, made my vision blur with rage. You could have asked me for help. Would you have said yes? The question hung between us like a trap, because we both knew the answer. I would have said yes. I always said yes. That's why they'd never bothered to ask. That's not the point, Mom. Then what is the point? You're going to destroy this family over money? You destroyed this family when you decided I was worth less than Evan's comfort. I hung up before she could respond. Evan showed up at my new apartment that evening. I'd rented a studio downtown, small but mine, with no room for anyone else's problems. He looked terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing the same clothes from Skylar's Instagram posts 3 days ago. Megan, please, I can explain everything. Your girlfriend already did. Her Instagram story was very thorough. He flinched. That wasn't supposed to happen. She didn't know it was meant to be a secret. The trip was never supposed to be a secret, Evan. It was supposed to be my gift to Dad. And it was beautiful. Dad had an amazing time. He talked about you the whole weekend, about how generous you are, how proud he is. He doesn't know about the loan stuff, I swear. But you were willing to lose my house to pay your debts. I was desperate. These aren't the kind of people you can negotiate with. I thought if I could just get a bridge loan, I could pay it back before you ever found out. With what money, Evan? You don't have a job. You haven't had a real job in 2 years. He started crying then, big messy sobs that reminded me of when we were kids and he'd broken something valuable. I know I screwed up. I know you hate me. But, Megan, I'm your brother? Doesn't that count for something? I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a 26-year-old man who'd never faced a consequence he couldn't charm his way out of. Being my brother should have meant protecting me, not stealing from me. I closed the door on his tears and his promises. Through the thin wall, I could hear him sobbing in the hallway for almost an hour before he finally left. That night, I changed my locks. The house sold faster than I expected. 3 weeks on the market, 2 offers over asking price. The buyers were a young couple with a baby on the way, the kind of family the house was meant for. I kept only what fit in my studio apartment. My laptop, my books, my grandmother's quilt, and a coffee mug that said "World's Most Gullible Sister" that my college roommate had given me as a joke. The irony felt appropriate now. Mom called twice more, each conversation shorter and more strained than the last. Dad never called at all, which hurt more than I expected. I'd convinced myself that he might have been an unwilling participant in their scheme, but his silence confirmed otherwise. The money from the house sale sat in my checking account like a judgment. More cash than I'd ever had at once, bought with the currency of burned bridges and lost illusions. Janet helped me set up a trust fund with strict conditions. If Evan ever got clean, really clean, with documented sobriety and therapy, he could access enough money for a genuine fresh start. Not enough to gamble away, but enough to build something real if he ever decided he wanted to. That's incredibly generous, Janet said when I explained the terms. It's insurance. So I never have to wonder if I could have done more. The hardest part wasn't the big moments, it was the small ones. Coming home to silence instead of drama. Having disposable income that stayed disposed of on things I actually wanted. Waking up without immediately checking my phone for family crises. I'd built my entire adult identity around being needed, and without that constant urgency, I felt weightless in a way that was both terrifying and exhilarating. I started therapy with Dr. Martinez, a small woman with kind eyes who specialized in family trauma. She had me write letters I never planned to send, practice saying no in the mirror, and keep a journal of moments when I chose my own needs first. Guilt is how they trained you, she explained during one session. It's not actually an emotion, it's a control mechanism. I joined a hiking club that met every Saturday morning, Nothing ambitious, just day hikes in the Columbia River Gorge with people who didn't know my story and didn't need anything from me except occasionally sharing trail mix. For the first time since college, I had friends who called me just to chat. People who remembered I liked dark chocolate and asked about my week without immediately launching into their own problems. 3 months after selling the house, I ran into Evan's ex-girlfriend Skylar at a coffee shop downtown. She was alone, scrolling through her phone with the desperate intensity of someone measuring her worth in likes and comments. She recognized me immediately. "Oh my God, Megan, right? Evan's sister?" "Yes. I heard about everything. I'm so sorry. I never knew the trip was supposed to be your surprise. Evan told me his family wanted to treat me to something special." "It's fine," I said, and meant it. For what it's worth, I broke up with him. The gambling thing scared me, and the lying. He lies about everything, even stupid stuff. "I know. Are you guys talking yet?" "No." She nodded like she understood. Sometimes family is just people who share your DNA. Doesn't mean they share your values. Walking home from that encounter, I realized something had changed. The sharp edges of my anger had worn smooth. I wasn't carrying their weight anymore. I was finally free to discover what I weighed on my own. 6 months after selling the house, Evan showed up at my door again. This time was different. He looked smaller somehow, carrying a manila folder instead of desperation. "I know you probably don't want to see me," he said through the intercom. "You're right, I don't. I've been in therapy. Real therapy, not court-ordered stuff. I have something to show you." Against my better judgment, I buzzed him up. He moved differently now, carefully, like someone who'd learned the hard way that sudden movements had consequences. The charm was gone, replaced by something that might have been humility. "I've been clean for 4 months," he said, settling carefully on my couch. "Gambling, drinking, all of it. I'm working at a restaurant, just washing dishes, but it's honest work." I waited for the request I knew was coming. "I'm not here to ask for money or forgiveness," he continued. "I'm here to give you this." He handed me the manila folder. Inside were bank statements, therapy session records, and a handwritten letter that looked like it had been drafted and redrafted dozens of times. The letter was an inventory of every time he'd lied to me, manipulated me, or taken advantage of my love. 3 pages of detailed accountability that must have taken weeks to compile. "My therapist said I couldn't get better until I stopped lying to myself about what I'd done to you," he said. "This probably doesn't mean anything to you, but writing it down, facing all of it at once, it broke something in me. In a good way." I read through the list slowly. Some incidents I remembered, others I'd apparently blocked out or rationalized away. The sheer volume was staggering. "The trip wasn't even my idea," he said quietly. "Mom suggested it when she found out about my debt. She said you'd never find out because you never check social media. Skylar posting those pictures wasn't planned. But you went along with it." "I went along with all of it, for years, because it was easier than growing up." We sat in silence for a long moment. Outside my window, Portland's afternoon light was doing that golden thing it does in autumn, painting everything warm and forgiving. "I don't forgive you," I said finally. He nodded. "I didn't expect you to. I'm not sure I deserve forgiveness. But I don't hate you anymore either. That's something." "It's everything," I corrected. "Hating you is keeping me stuck in the past. I can't heal while I'm holding on to that poison." He left the folder with me and stood to go. At the door, he turned back. "For what it's worth, I loved you. I still love you. I just didn't know how to love anyone without taking from them. I'm learning the difference now." After he left, I called Dr. Martinez. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Sad," I said. "But not devastated. More like mourning for the relationship we could have had if he'd gotten help years ago." "That's a healthy response. You're grieving the fantasy while accepting the reality. He might actually change this time." "Maybe. Does that change anything for you?" I thought about it. "No, whether he changes or not isn't my responsibility anymore. I'm proud of him for trying, but my healing isn't dependent on his recovery." "That's the difference between love and codependence," she said. "You can wish him well without sacrificing yourself to save him." That night, I filed the folder in my desk drawer. Not because I was ready to rebuild our relationship, but because I was finally ready to stop being defined by its destruction. For the first time in months, I slept without dreams of my family at all. 1 year later, I was standing in the kitchen of my new condo, a 2-bedroom place with actual sunlight and space for a dining table, when Mom called. I almost didn't answer. We'd spoken exactly 3 times since the eviction. Once when she begged me to reconsider, once when she tried to blame Evan's problems on my abandonment, and once to tell me Dad was in the hospital for real this time. That last call had been 6 months ago. I'd sent flowers to his room but didn't visit. The old me would have dropped everything and rushed to his bedside. The new me recognized that my presence would create more drama than comfort. "Megan?" Her voice was smaller than I remembered. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important. What can I do for you, Mom? I wanted you to know that your father and I are divorcing. The news should have shocked me, but it didn't. If anything, I felt a distant sort of relief." "I'm sorry to hear that." "He's been having an affair, for 2 years apparently, with his supervisor at work." "I'm sorry," I repeated, meaning it this time. "I keep thinking about what you said, about destroying the family. You were right, we destroyed it long before you ever moved out, we just never wanted to admit it." I sat down heavily on my new couch, a deep blue sectional I'd bought because I liked it, not because it matched anything else. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I've been in therapy too, finally. And I'm learning that I spent so many years protecting Evan from consequences that I never protected you from anything. Not even us." The acknowledgement landed like a gift I wasn't sure I wanted to accept. "I know you probably can't forgive me," she continued. "And I'm not calling to ask you to. I just wanted you to know that I see it now, how we treated you, how wrong it was." "Thank you for saying that. Are you happy in your new life?" I looked around my sunny kitchen, at the calendar full of hiking trips and book club meetings and cooking classes I'd signed up for just because they sounded fun, at the photos on my refrigerator, new friends, new experiences, a life built on my own terms. I'm getting there. "I'm glad. You deserve happiness, Megan. You always did." After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, watching the afternoon light move across my walls. The conversation felt like an ending, but not the kind I'd expected. There was no dramatic reconciliation, no tears of forgiveness, no sudden urge to rebuild what we'd lost. Just a quiet acknowledgement that we'd all grown into different people, and maybe that was okay. That evening, I wrote in my journal for the first time in weeks. Today, Mom apologized. Not for attention or manipulation, but because she finally understood what she'd done. I didn't forgive her. I'm not there yet, maybe never will be, but I felt something shift. The anger that used to live in my chest like a stone has dissolved into something lighter. Sadness, maybe, or just acceptance. I think I'm finally ready to stop waiting for my old family to become the people I needed them to be. I'm ready to build something new. I closed the journal and started planning dinner. Tomorrow, Sarah was coming over to help me hang paintings in my bedroom. Next weekend, the hiking club was tackling Mount Hood. Next month, I was starting a pottery class. For the first time in my life, the future felt like something I was creating instead of something I was enduring. I was 30 years old, and I was finally growing up. My journey taught me the hardest lesson. Loving your family should never require you to set yourself on fire just to keep them warm. For years, I believed being the strong one was a badge of honor, but it was really a cage. If my story resonates with you, I hope it serves as the permission you need to choose yourself. Your peace, your future, and your happiness are not selfish. They are necessary. Thank you for listening. Please share your own stories of setting boundaries in the comments below. Your strength might be exactly what someone else needs to see today.